Hey everybody, it's Alex Grande here to talk around the idea of hybrid culture playbook that drives engagement and high performance. So we're going to be talking about how you can build a thriving culture no matter where your staff live. I want to know where you live. Where are you at, and who do you work for? Put it in the chat. I'm really excited to have everyone here. This is a topic that I'm really passionate about. I've been working remotely slash hybrid for over 10 years. And I'm really excited to talk about the idea of building a hybrid culture playbook that can drive performance. So we're going to get into that. While you're sharing where you are and what you do, I'll share a little bit about myself. I'm actually in Portland. I'm progressively moving towards the digital nomad lifestyle, where if you have a great office and solid internet, you really can work from anywhere with the right tools and processes. And we're going to walk away today in this 30 to 45-minute session with 5 things you can do starting today. But we're going to talk about a wide-ranging topic of ideas around hybrid culture, and we're going to go through around 22 slides. A little bit about me. I am a web developer, technologist with a background in psychology. So I've been always very passionate about motivation, unconscious bias, things like that. So I'm really excited to go into this topic. I'm now the CEO of Recognize. It's an employee recognition and rewards software. Excuse me, sorry, my voice is a little bit hoarse today. But I am so passionate. I said we're going to keep talking about this and make sure this happens on this Thursday. But yeah, great to see everyone coming in from Canada, BC. Love BC, just north, our northern neighbor. Love that. Florida, good to see you there. Kansas City, Nova Scotia, love that. San Diego, great to have everyone here. Talking about hybrid culture. It's so important. Okay, so and why is it important? It is the new normal, the hybrid landscape, and it's something that you definitely want to be considering if you're not already doing a hybrid culture. Around 78% of companies now are embracing hybrid culture. So it is less of a differentiator. You are expected now to have a hybrid culture. And it allows your team to be more productive, ultimately provides better flexibility and productivity, right? Rather than an office only environment. Okay. And on top of that, we're looking at the idea of how we can transform the rewards, total rewards. We're going to talk more about that. If people are in different places, total rewards needs to travel, right? And this can help you evolve your talent strategy by creating new magnets, as we say, in the entrepreneurial operating system, the EOS. Definitely look that up. One of the ideas is having your rocks, your boulders. So what are you trying to accomplish this quarter? I love that analogy where if you think about a large boulder, you think about big projects. And in the same way as your talent strategy. So being able to have your magnets, so to speak, it's an analogy for what really draws people to stay at and continue to work at your organization. And with now people mobile and hybrid, having that on-site gym, that expensive on-site gym may not be as beneficial as other perks that can travel. So great to see people coming in from Denver, Egypt. I love that. All right, let's keep it going. So in the first poll that we want to do, let's put that poll up. I'm curious what we're going to talk about. What things are fading away? What things are less common now? And we're going to go give everyone a chance to answer. What is fading away at your org? What's happening less than it used to be? While people are pulling that up, what's happening in your organization? Some things that we're seeing, right, are on-site perks. I just mentioned that, like the on-site gym. What are possible things that you can offer outside of one place? And so that's a big one. Is you're seeing less on-site perks happening. The legacy flexibility, the idea that telework is just kind of ad hoc. We're now creating formal processes around that. Some of those nice to haves that we used to have here, are changing, and especially since COVID. And, the dependent care FSAs, if there's no childcare in your area or childcare has become exorbitantly expensive, or if you're able to work from home and be with your child, then it is not as useful as it once was. So we see 40% of people see a decrease in physical HQ perks. That doesn't mean we need to just remove that budget. We can redistribute that budget. I love seeing the 5 to 9 sync being one of them as well. So this is really telling. I'm going to grab a screenshot of that because that is so interesting. All right. So with hybrid culture, we have to be considering the fact that if we don't do the right thing, your culture is going to drift away. So we have to adapt. We have to make some changes. And I think this is just true of any time. We always want to be surveying. Feedback loop is critical. And we're going to talk more about that in this presentation. But some things that you might be experiencing right now, if another company is offering hybrid and you're not, then you could be losing your top talent. I hear from leadership, the most important thing is performance. And with performance, one of the great ways to stay performant is by retaining your top performers. So attrition and retention is critical. And another problem with the hybrid culture that could be more challenging is you need more processes, you need more documentation. And that's naturally going to happen. But the faster you get there, the faster you have that wiki. We just implemented a chatbot, right, that is connected to our wiki, right? So I can ask it any question I want. I can ask it, what's the most important document? I asked it today, what is the most important document in our wiki? And it said our employee handbook, right? So you want to have these ways of creating team mentality, all from one mentality, no matter where people work, right? Another problem is feeling disconnected or invisible. We're going to talk more about that, but you want to do things that can prevent people from feeling lonely in the hybrid environment. So with that, it's so funny how some employees you have that burnout, that looming burnout, where they're constantly working and they never can disconnect. But then you have employees that just don't work enough, and they're using the work from home as an advantage, right? They're taking advantage of the situation. So you have to find a balance that works for everybody. You can remind people, hey, you're allowed to disconnect, but that is not an excuse to not work and not to put effort into your job. I've interviewed someone once, and I asked, why are you applying to work here? And they said, because I want to work from home. And that's like saying, I want to work at your company because I hear you have free lunch. Like, it's a perk to work from home, but done correctly, you can have higher performance, but you don't want to allow people to slip, right? And that can be really easy if you're not checking in with people and having honest conversations with people. And that's why one-on-ones are so critical, to make sure that you're maintaining productivity, no matter where people work, without having to resort to draconian solutions like monitoring how often people are on the green dot, right? So, you're allowed to disconnect. Personally, what I love about working from home is I'm able to have my 8 o'clock to noon or 1 o'clock, 9 to 1 working session. I'm able to take a break, walk the dog, take a nap, go to the gym, just hang out, look at my phone, whatever you're into to relax. And then you come back and have that second session of work. When it used to be, if I was at the office 9 to 5, that time might be less productive, right? Or maybe even distracting other people. So, we want to allow people to work when they want to work. So, some things that you want to be just watching out for is anytime you're applying old systems to new realities. So replicating in-office perks can lead to burnout when you should be thinking about holistically around, it doesn't matter where someone works. You want to also think about how to really, the one on the right is really important to me, is that managers often don't know what to do. We want to keep leveling up skills with managers. That means trainings around how to manage people. If in an office, it's really easy to just look over at someone's computer and know what they're doing, right? But in a work from home environment, you can't do that. One of the worst things that can happen in a company is having a manager who doesn't know what someone's doing, or they're left in the dark. They don't know when you're going to finish something. You haven't built that trust with that employee yet. And now they're working from home, they're invisible. That can add to micromanaging. That can add to a lot of stress for everybody. So you want to be able to create playbooks that are clear, they're accessible in your wiki on how to handle different types of situations that are work from home for managers so that everyone's doing the same thing and optimized. So ultimately, so these are kind of what is going on, what's down, what's less happening. But ultimately, the goal here is to create a trust-based, high-performing culture. And you can do that from people working from home or in different offices, and you can create a cohesive culture. We can do this with mergers and acquisitions as well. So I'm going to provide some frameworks on things you can do starting today. So, what my promise here is that it is true, we can build a culture that has a competitive advantage. Even if 78% of people have hybrid already, we can do it even better with a playbook. And I'm going to give you some ideas on how to do that. Things that you want to be measuring, and we're going to talk more about measuring later around surveying and how you can do that. But you want to make sure that people feel seen and heard and valued in the organization. That's really important. And that's why I created a recognition program so that people can feel valued and heard in the organization, right? You know what success looks like through a recognition program. That's public. It's in Microsoft Teams. It's in Slack. So that's most important. And then, like I said, around playbooks, it's so important as a hybrid company to have playbooks, and they're easy to find. Everyone knows where they are, and you train people on that. A lot of times there's this idea of learned helplessness. You're used to working at a company that the wiki is unorganized. It's not useful. There's no AI bot that you can talk to, right? You can now have a conversation with a wiki thanks to Gen AI. So get that implemented. It can be, depending on what systems you use, it could be a few clicks to get that going. Make those playbooks accessible, make sure people are using them, and then measure people that are expected to use those playbooks in the performance review and in those one-on-ones. So now we talked about what's going down and what's going up, right? You're seeing an increase by 20% of companies looking at locality-based adjustments. I remember being on an airplane next to someone who worked for a very large company, not going to say which one. People really should get those privacy screens up, but he was a head of HR and he was setting prices, salary caps for different roles in different regions. And that's what you should be doing as well. You should have a spreadsheet of what is the pay range for different locations. Someone in, for instance, I'm usually in Seattle. It is very expensive there. If you are in Spokane, Washington, it's also a city, but costs less. So we should have adjustments for that. Paid parental leave here. Recognize we do 30 paid, 3 months paid. I have a friend in Estonia. They said that they get a year and a half, and that's government mandated. I know that's a big difference from what we have here in the States. There is no government law that requires paid parental leave here in the United States. In the 90s, they passed it so that you couldn't fire people for taking parental leave. That's how far we've gotten. We really need to standardize that, and that's an increase, and that is a competitive advantage. Lastly, wellness and flexibility is critical as well. Okay, I just want to take a pause and just enjoy. I love this meme. There's 2 memes here, so you get a double. I'm definitely guilty with the one on the right, where I'm in a call, I'm not sharing my video, and I feel like I'm always on. Even when I'm in a Zoom meeting, I feel like I need to be being productive in other ways, and I feel like that can happen to me. Okay, so let's go through a couple things that we can do to improve the process here. So clarity and outcomes beat proximity, right? So if you're measuring people on how visible they are physically, there's other ways you can show up, right? You can show up in Teams or in Slack, right? Commenting on other people's posts, right? Being innovative, being a yes and person in meetings, showing up in meetings, having ideas, having questions, right? Not being a drain. There's so many ways you show up and be proactive without being physically in the office. And so that's the new model, and that's what we should be focusing on. We want to ensure that we have a culture where feedback isn't just top down, right? I encourage those Ask Me Anything sessions, anonymous questions that then leadership answers. I encourage managers to leave those kinds of 5-minute buffers in the beginning and the end of meetings, right? Allow for unscripted, informal connection with your team. We want remote workers to thrive and feel connected and informed, no matter where they are, right? You want to combat that anxiety by ensuring everyone is in the loop, regardless of location. So here's a few ideas of ways to do that, like eliminating information silos, less private private messages, more group discussions, so more people are in the loop, or let multiple people know. These are trained behaviors. You don't want to see paragraphs in Slack. Sometimes I can still, or Teams. I can still be guilty of that at times, but it's better to get on the phone, especially now that Teams and Zoom, they have transcripts. So if you have a longer conversation, you still get the written form afterwards. I want to take a pause and mention again, as I talked about in the beginning of the presentation, total rewards that travel. So you want to be looking at new rewards as HR professionals that can apply to everybody, no matter where they are. Again, things like your home office, having a stipend. Here, Recognize, I think it's around like $200 per year. It's always exceptions. They can just expense it. It's really easy. I don't have to be involved. If you have something like Amazon Business, that can help as well. And then what things can you do to make the community better, have people be healthier, right? So there's so many, class pass, yoga studios, climbing gyms, right? There's so many options. I used to work at a snowboard shop in Seattle called Evo, really cool company. They've really grown since they started, where they were just buying ski gear and selling it on Craigslist. But they would give a stipend for the climbing gym, right? Or any gym you wanted. You don't need to have your own in-office gym. There's so many other options for gyms. So I want to talk about recognition. It is really important. There's a reason why I started a platform to provide recognition. That visibility is the currency of a remote worker. You want a digital high five program. It's super easy to create one. You can do it with a form. It could be set up with Zapier and AI or Make.com, or you can use Microsoft 365. If you want to just off-the-shelf solution, or just give a quick preview of what that looks like, here in Teams, for instance, where people can redeem sporting events, concerts with points they've earned and showcased it as the Hall of Fame around the values of the organization that can be created and set up by you as owners of this program, and they can be in Teams. You can submit challenges, you can be in Slack, right? And then there's AI reports and summaries of your top employees. So, this is something that you can set up in 1 month with something like Recognize, what we handle all for you. If you ever want to have a meeting and I can go over how to set it up completely no cost to you, and how to create a homegrown program to get started with a digital high five, a digital recognition program, I'm happy to do that. You can encourage people without using a rewards program. You can encourage people through status or power or access. There's other motivation levers you can utilize to connect with people and make sure that recognition is visible and you are showing what success looks like in the organization. Awesome. The third teaching point here is to codify your culture. If you don't already have a wiki that has clear values, and maybe, again, what's nice about Recognition program is your values are being reinforced on a daily basis and being posted into Microsoft Teams and Slack. And so people can see what are your values and what does the company represent, living and breathing. And these are leading indicators of the health of your company. You'll be able to see which groups in your company are recognizing the most and are not, or disengaged, right? Rather than a lagging indicator, which would be a survey. But the more often you survey, the faster you can steer that plane to the right direction. There's that saying, if you're only measuring once a month or once a quarter, that means an entire year. If you were flying from Seattle to Florida and you only check the direction you're going 4 times, you may get off course. So, and everything is data now. Everything should be data, and that's why you should be communicating a recognition program to your management, your managers, is that this is codifying and remembering and recording all the successes. And when you go into that one-on-one, you go into that performance review, you have the data right there already accessible. But yeah, culture can no longer just live in your office walls. It has to be living and breathing outside of that through digital tools, through leadership communication. And again, you want to have that be part of the onboarding process, learning what the values, the rituals, and the communication norms. I went into our new AI bot with our wiki today, and I said, what is our code of conduct? I've written a code of conduct. I know where it is because I wrote it. But if I was an employee, can I look that up easily now? And yes, you can. So you want to have those things accessible and part of the onboarding. So yeah, again, listening to staff is really important. Remote workers do have symptoms of higher stress or depression rather, than their in-office counterparts. So you really want to look at that and make sure that you are connecting with people, checking in with people, and allowing for that psychological safety so you can have that conversation with your employees. And in those one-on-ones, there should be a standard set of questions that every manager asks in a one-on-one to make sure that they're checking in with their employee and seeing if there's anything there. Because again, that survey, people may lie, right? They may not feel comfortable divulging, or you may only do a survey once a year.
Alex, we have two questions in the chat for you. Tammy is asking, is an in-facility culture builder available? I work in manufacturing HR, so all are at a facility. I need to come up with a game plan to build our positive culture.
I love that. We had a session last week on manufacturing engagement, and we can send you the video of that from last week. And this topic is really on the hybrid side. On the manufacturing side, hybrid is part of that, right? In office and also in facility, outside the facility. I can just touch on a couple things to point out, connecting with people where they are. So if they're in the facility, having an old school bulletin board, using kiosk modes or TV modes or iPads that people can do different functions on, using printed out award certificates, having a playbook for those team huddles, right? Using challenges to promote safety, right? And being proactive with safety. So we did a number of conversations around that last week. I'd love to send that over to you. And if you ever want to talk one-on-one, let's set up a session. The other question I think is on the wiki, which is, so a wiki is a knowledge base. So I think Confluence, we use Notion. It's kind of the new Silicon Valley darling is Notion. So check that out. It could be just Google Drive. We tried using OneDrive. I'm sorry to say, I hope that's not your choice. It's too hard to use in that way. The nice thing about Notion is that every file is a folder, right? And every file can be a database or like an Excel. It's like a smart Excel with hierarchy of files. It's really cool. So if someone wants to, share that, SharePoint is another great choice for a wiki. So a wiki is basically a knowledge base, a place that you can see a directory of topics. You can search, you can create, you can edit. And if you're a hybrid company, it's absolutely required to have a digital knowledge base. And it's also required to, going back on topic, to listen to your staff. So how can we listen to our staff? Well, you can do surveys. Those can be done online or in one-on-ones. I love the virtual suggestion boxes. If you can really prove to people that it is anonymous, you want to maybe use a third-party tool so that that the leadership does not have access to the metadata on who submitted it. Town halls are great too. We talked about the Ask Me Anything. Do everything possible to listen to your employees. Again, the more data, the better. And thanks to now Gen AI, all of this can just be piped in and summarized. Of course, always check with leadership around which LLMs you're allowed to use for privacy reasons, and consider scrubbing the data if necessary to ensure no corporate secrets are shared. As a disclaimer, as someone in leadership that thinks about these things. Moving on, another meme that I want to dual meme here. I am so guilty of the one on the left, which is even my espresso right here, which is really, really tasty. I love about espresso is you can make it in 2 minutes. Another funny idea around working from home, kind of wrapping up a little bit here, which is awesome. I love covering a lot in a little bit of time. I know everyone, I'm sure, is very busy, but looking at what, in general, looking at the big picture of what we've been talking about. So recognition, codifying and documenting your values, your norms, listening to your employees, re-looking at what performance is, right? How do you measure performance? Is it up to date with your now hybrid organization? And one of the most critical things to a successful company is clarity of their roles, right? If you know what you need to do and your manager knows when you're going to get it done, and you have the autonomy to choose how to do that, you're going to have a fantastic culture just at that basic level. So I want to talk about 5 things you can do right now that I encourage this. Well, last time I encouraged it as well last week. Eliminate an unnecessary meeting. If you're at the right number of meetings, take a hard look at that. Or what is one meeting that you don't need to go to, right? Or maybe there's a series of meetings you go to that maybe you can go to for less, or maybe you're at the perfect amount. Maybe you need more meetings. It's just all about continuing to look at that critically, and don't just do things because we've always done it that way. If you hear anybody say, well, that's just the way I am, in that book, How I Got Here Isn't How You Get There. What's that book? It was like 20 rules, right? And one of them is, don't say, that's just who I am. That's just how I am, right? You got to keep looking at yourself. And if your company says that's just how we do things here, red flag. Another one is create a peer-to-peer recognition channel, even just one in Slack or Teams. Just, hey, someone does something awesome, or maybe there's an accomplishment, project, a goal, a revenue number, whatever it is, something positive, have a place that's shared, including recognizing individuals. And it could be groups of individuals too. Continuously train your managers, right? Continue to have trainings around things like proximity bias and other new topics that come up as new working styles develop. And standardize your work from home rules. Camera off, camera on. What is it? And the nice thing now is with AI is you can talk to AI and get some information from Gemini or Teams. I'm sorry, open AI or from ChatGPT. We can have these kinds of very general conversations around, hey, create me a flow chart on the work from home rules based off of some things that we're already doing. And that can really help. Let's just check if there's anything else in the chat. Yes, you'll get the webinar for sure. Yeah, and we're going to be doing a live demo. So it's on March 25th at 11 a.m. Pacific here in Portland, 2 p.m. Eastern time. Come check out Recognize. I gave it a little taste. I went to a Blazers game. I was super excited to go. It was really fun to go NBA game. And I used my recognition points to go by buying those tickets. So check out the demo, see how Recognize works. We're really excited about our roadmap. I have a lot of new developments coming with Recognize. So love to have you part of that ride. But also I want to touch on that we're having our next webinar in a couple of weeks, give my voice a break. And then I'll be back on April 2nd. From policy to practice, the hybrid HR playbook. So we're going to do a number of series on the hybrid environment, and I'm really excited to dive in that with you. So please come April 2nd. And if you ever want to reach out to me, alex@RecognizeApp.com. I'm on LinkedIn, super easy to find. You can go to our website, RecognizeApp.com. There's a contact there. You can schedule a demo with us. Again, alex@RecognizeApp.com. Thanks so much for coming. That was a great last 30 minutes. And thanks everybody for coming.